Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for MSU's Meet Your Major Week, where tonight we're going to learn about the College of Nursing. So on the next slide, if you are having any issues, please feel free to call in. Both the number and the access code are on the screen. And then this webinar will also be recorded and be available to you after this presentation later on this week. So you'll always have this information just right at your fingertips. Tonight, you're going to hear directly from Paul Swift from the College of Nursing. I'll let him introduce himself here in a second. But throughout this, if questions come up, please use the WebEx chat feature that's available to you. We have admissions counselors on the other end who will help answer questions. And then there'll be plenty of time at the end of this presentation for some live Q&A. But other than that, I'm going to pass it off to Paul, and thanks again.
All right, thank you. So welcome everybody. Very excited to be talking to you today about the College of Nursing. Just want to give you a brief little overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to do a little bit of background to the college. Think about the degree, what the degree looks like. Talk about our nursing program. It's a statewide program and what that means. Look at some opportunities that students have with the College of Nursing, and also check out some resources. So before we jump into that too far, I'll just introduce myself. That's me. I'm the Director of Academic Programs and Evaluation for the College of Nursing at Montana State. I grew up in Bozeman. My father was actually a professor in the College of Business, so I've been kind of tooling around on campus since I was little guy. I also did my undergraduate and graduate work at MSU. I'm actually currently in my PhD program. So a lot of experience as a student, and I've been working on campus since 2011. And I've been with the College of Nursing since 2019. So that's just a little bit about me, just so you know. So we'll jump right into some background information on the college. So the college was founded in 1937. Right at a time when nursing was moving from a field where nurses were trained before primarily in hospitals to one where there was an expectation that they would first get some knowledge from faculty in the university prior to going into hospitals and finishing off kind of their nursing career. And so we joined that trend back in 1937. We're currently the largest BSN program in Montana, BSN being Bachelor of Science in Nursing. We have over 1,000 students in that degree, if you will, degree track. And we are also the largest producer of graduate prepared nurses in Montana, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well in a moment. So we have two Bachelor of Science in Nursing degrees. We have a traditional one, which is probably, I would guess, what most of you are interested in. This is for someone who does not already have a bachelor's degree, traditional freshman coming into college. That would be your track. We also have an accelerated Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree for students who already have a bachelor's degree in a field other than nursing, who are looking to go into nursing, and you finish faster in that track. We have a Master of Science in Nursing as well, and also two options in the Doctor of Nursing practice, one for family practice, one for psych mental health. So lots of different options for nurses in the College of Nursing. So what does the degree look like? We're primarily here today, we're going to be talking about the traditional Bachelor's of Science degrees. So I like to kind of think of it as being in two blocks. So we have a pre-nursing, and we'll look at that coursework in a minute, and a nursing part of the degree. So during the pre-nursing degree, you're going to be working on these prerequisite courses that you see here. You have to get at least a C-, and overall you have to have at least a 3.0 in there. Only 2 repeats of classes in those prerequisite courses. And again, we'll look at those in just a second. During that time in your pre-nursing, you're also going to be chipping away at your core 2.0 requirements, or general education as some universities call it. So some of that you'll get with the prerequisites. There are some categories of core that you'll have to do outside of the prerequisite courses. Kind of you get your choice on these. So that's where students get to experiment a bit and do things they're interested in. And then of course we have the second block, which is the nursing. So nursing requirements, that's the courses you fulfill once you've been accepted into the College of Nursing and placed in one of our 5 campus locations. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but just preview campus locations being Billings, Bozeman, Great Falls, Kalispell, and Missoula. So pre-nursing takes about 2 years for most students. It depends a little bit on every student's individual situation, but these are the courses that you're going to be working through. You can see it's a nice mix of kind of science, natural science, some just communication skills, writing, those types of courses. Also a little bit of an introduction into nursing itself. There are some options just for students between core and other electives to also explore things that they're interested in. 2 years, you average 15 credits a semester, 30 credits a year, 60 credits in 2 years. That's your pre-nursing part of the degree. The total degree, you need 120. And so you get the second 60 in the nursing part of the degree. And so this is the curriculum for the last 2 years. And so you can take a look. It's a mixture of all different types of nursing knowledge and practice. And there's a nice mix as well of kind of clinical opportunities face-to-face, as well as some opportunities to do virtual simulations with simulation mannequins and things like that. So all different types of opportunities for students. It's a refreshed curriculum that we have, so it's kind of cutting edge as far as what we know about nursing education right now. Super exciting. Another 60 credits up to 120 to graduate. We do graduate generalist nurses. So you go through here, you are prepared to sit for the NCLEX exam and go ahead into any kind of area of nursing that you'd like to then specialize in. So a lot of questions then come up around this 2 years and 2 years, pre-nursing versus nursing. We have to apply from pre-nursing to get into nursing. So just a little bit here on what that looks like. So you do need a minimum GPA, like was already stated, of a 3.0 in those prerequisite courses, the defined ones that we had in that list. We currently use a competitive GPA for acceptance into the program, meaning applicants are ranked off of their prerequisite GPA, and that's how we select our students. We take 112 students 2 times a year into the traditional program. And we do have some spots that are reserved for some waiver-based programs, ROTC, some athletics and things like that. You have to get at least a C- or in all the prerequisites. W, D, and F are not accepted. You would have to retake those, and we do limit our students to 2 retakes. At the time of application, you have to have completed 3 of the 5 science courses, and we define the science courses as Human Anatomy and Physiology 1, Human Anatomy and Physiology 2, Intro to General Chemistry, Intro to Organic and Biochemistry, and Microbiology. So of those 5 sciences, you need to have completed at least 3 at the time of your application. One of those 3 has to be Anatomy and Physiology 1. Another part of the application, this is really a part of being a nurse generally, is you do have to fulfill some clinical compliance requirements. You need a successful background check and urine drug screen. If you get accepted into the program, you also then need to comply with kind of the rest of the requirements that any nurse would have to comply at a hospital. So mostly that means immunizations, but you also have to have CPR, you have to have proof of insurance, a few other things as well. And this is really, our students are working, essentially working in hospitals. So we do need to follow the regulations that the hospitals have for their own employees. And that's essentially what this is. And so it's just kind of getting them started early with what they're going to be dealing with as they work into the future. So I kind of hinted at this earlier, but I just thought I would talk a little bit about what it means to be a statewide nursing program. So I said we take 112 students 2 times a year. And so the reason we are able to take that many students is because we can utilize the clinical capacity throughout 5 of the largest cities in the state. There's no way that any particular city in Montana could handle that many students in the clinical facilities that they have in that city. And so the way that we can produce the number of nurses that are needed in Montana, that are needed in the country, or at least attempt to meet the needs of those nurses, of the need for nurses in the state and in the country. The only way we can do that is by making use of these different cities. And so we repeat what we do 5 times across the state at the nursing level. And so in Billings, just like in Bozeman, Great Falls, Kalispell, and Missoula, we have actual physical space. We have offices. Those offices are all staffed by we call them CD, campus director, assistant campus directors. We have administrative assistants, we have tenure track faculty, non-tenure track faculty, we have clinical faculty. So we have all of those human resources. The physical space, we also have classrooms. We have office space for those people. We have simulation labs. We have simulation mannequins. And again, that is repeated in Billings, in Bozeman, in Great Falls, in Kalispell, and in Missoula. So we really strive to make use of that statewide clinical capacity, and then to give our students the same experience no matter where they are. It's the same curriculum, so you're taking the same classes, you're a Bobcat nurse. This is one thing that confuses people, particularly from Montana. No matter where you are, if you're in the nursing program at Montana State, you are graduating from Montana State University, you just might physically be located somewhere else. And so our students spend the last 2 years on these campuses. Just a touch base a little bit on these different cities. Billings is the largest city in Montana. It has 2 really large hospitals there that our students take advantage of while they're studying. It is also the place where we send the largest number of students. Bozeman and Missoula together are the 2nd largest campuses. Missoula, for those that don't know, is kind of where it's the other college town in the state. But Bozeman has Bozeman Health. That's the primary hospital that we make use of here. And Missoula has 2 hospitals there that we take advantage of. And so 2nd largest campuses there. Great Falls is next. Great Falls used to be the largest city in Montana. And so a lot of the kind of foundational medical infrastructure was built up there early on. And so there's a tremendous hospital up there with just absolutely great opportunities for our students clinically that we utilize up there for our students that go there. And then Kalispell is the smallest of our campuses. It's tucked up right by Glacier National Park and Flathead Lakes, a super pretty area. And we utilize both the hospital in Kalispell, and then there's also a critical access facility in Whitefish that our students also use up there. And Kalispell is also the smallest town out of all these 5. And so that is what a statewide nursing program looks like. And it's not uncommon for colleges of nursing in the United States to do this kind of thing, particularly in areas that are somewhat rural. It's outside of large urban centers, it's rare to be able to train the number of nurses you need in one area. And so this is how we do it, and this is how we serve the state of Montana. So a lot of questions end up being around, how do we get placed into these different cities? When I apply, what do I do? And so what we do is when students apply, like I said, we rank them. Currently, we rank them just off of prerequisite GPA, and we take the top 112 students 2 times a year. So it's spring and fall. So we take the 112, and during the application, everyone ranks their preference of campus location 1 through 5 with these 5 cities. And we start at the top when we're giving them placement. So we accept them, the top 112, then we give them placement. And we look at the number 1 ranked applicant, and we give them their first campus preference choice. We go to number 2, same, we give them their first campus preference choice. And we go down the list until we get to a student whose first campus preference choice has been filled, and then we offer them their second campus preference choice, et cetera, et cetera. You can imagine how this works through the list. And so we track this data. It varies a bit by application cycle, obviously, but between 80 to 90% of students end up getting into either their first or second campus preference choice. So it does seem to work out. We have a lot of students from throughout Montana, and they're looking to be close to home, or they know that there's a great opportunity up in Great Falls and they really want to be there, or they're interested in some of the stuff that the hospital does in Billings and they want to be there. So it tends to work out. This is one point of concern always with parents and students, but almost to a person, every student that goes to a campus, even if it wasn't their first one, comes out saying, I had a great experience. It was amazing. The one other thing that I'll talk about now, because I'm sure it will be a question if I don't bring it up at the moment, is how competitive is it? Is essentially the question that comes up, or like, what is a competitive GPA? Those types of questions. And so really what we find is that there's just a huge variance between application cycles. We used to post GPA averages, but what we found was when we posted those, students who had a GPA above the average, if they applied and did not get accepted, they felt misled because it was a competitive application cycle. And if they had GPA below the average, a lot of times they did not apply thinking they were not going to be competitive, or they changed to another major when it was a less competitive application cycle and they would have gotten in. And so our message has really become, do your best, try hard and apply. We talk openly more about acceptance rates as opposed to GPAs, because that just misleads students about what their chances are. So our acceptance rates in the last 3 years have varied from a very competitive cycle being an acceptance rate of 60% to a less competitive cycle being in the high 80% of students accepted. And if any of you have looked around at colleges of nursing and different nursing programs throughout the US, it's a pretty high acceptance rate, all things considered. So I would not be discouraged about coming here and trying to get into the nursing program. We definitely do our best to get as many students through as we can. So that basically covers the application and nursing and stuff like that for the moment. I'm sure you guys have questions, and we'll be looking forward to answering those in a few minutes when we get to that point. Next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was just some of the opportunities within the College of Nursing. And so we do have different things that students get to do as they're coming through. So we've got professional opportunities. There's professional, what's the word I'm looking for? It's late on a work day here. There's the Montana Nursing Association, right? And different kind of nursing honors associations and things like that our students are welcome to participate in throughout their career, from pre-nursing all the way through up till nursing. That's one thing we really encourage our students to take part of. We do have internships, and in fact, our refreshed curriculum that I showed you there has internships built into it, but there are also internships in the summers that students also take advantage of. These are really good opportunities for students to kind of test out either an area of nursing that they think they would be interested in when they graduate, or to test out maybe a specific facility that they're interested in working in. Maybe they go to Kalispell and they really want to work at Kalispell Regional Hospital in the emergency department. And so they try to get an internship there, and it's an opportunity for them to get a sense of, is this the type of work that I'd like to be doing in this particular facility? And then also, on the other hand, it's an opportunity for the facility to say, you know, is this student one that we would like to hire? So it's kind of, if you do a good job, you know, almost a foot in the door to get a job once you graduate. So our students love to take advantage of that. We have a lot of cross-cultural experiences, and for those of you, well, not from Montana for sure, and even those from Montana, you might kind of say, well, what do you have, you know, in a state like Montana that seems fairly homogeneous as far as just race and ethnicity. But we actually partner a lot with the tribal communities throughout the state, and so students have opportunities to go and practice in a number of these communities while they're going through. It's a really great opportunity for our students. And in another way that we have kind of cross-cultural experiences is Montana's a very rural state, and rural medicine looks extremely different than medicine does in a more urban area. And so, and you could say even culturally, the practice is a lot different. And so we also have a rural primary care track that students can opt into. It's a great opportunity for students to spend time in rural facilities, get experience there, see what rural healthcare and rural nursing looks like and how it's different, and get a chance to say, you know, is this something that maybe I'd be interested in? Because while there's a shortage of nurses across the country, in urban areas as well as rural areas are really, really in need of nurses. And so that's another kind of cross-cultural experience, if you will, that's available to our students. We have study abroad. I mean, in the first 2 years in your pre-nursing, you can take part in kind of any study abroad that you would would like to with the university. And, that's a conversation that anyone, if they're interested in having, should reach out to the Office of International Programs, and I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you about. In the last 2 years, nursing specifically, we have also some study abroad opportunities. And so we take students to India in the summer for about 3 weeks, and they go into villages throughout the country and do kind of basic health assessments and kind of get a sense of what that's like in another country, with different healthcare expectations, from patients, and just different healthcare systems, and it's very, very interesting and enlightening for our students there. We'll be taking some students to Tanzania this fall, as long as everything gets, fingers crossed, approved. And in a similar way, it's working in these kind of medically underserved areas in the country and doing those kind of basic health assessments, helping people out to think about how to improve their kind of baseline. And then in the spring, we take students to Ecuador. And again, it's kind of the same thing. In spring, we do it during spring break. In fall, we're planning on doing it. MSU is going to have a full week break around Thanksgiving. And so we're going to take advantage of that and go down there. And in spring break, we're going to be going to Ecuador. Again, all of these trips, we're doing kind of similar things. We're going to underserved communities, doing health assessment, talking to the patients about their health and things they can do to improve their health. So it's a great opportunity for the communities that we go to, but it's also a great opportunity for our students to see just the different practices and cultures around medicine. So study abroad. Undergraduate research, as you might have already known if you've listened to other parts of MSU, this is something that MSU is very proud of. MSU is classified by the Carnegie classification system as being very high research activity. And we also have a very large undergraduate research portfolio. And so the College of Nursing also has a number of faculty doing research, actively doing research that requires participation at the undergraduate level. And so if students want to be involved in that, that's something they should reach out early. We can connect students with faculty that are doing research that they might want to be involved in. In nursing, it's kind of interesting. Unlike a lot of other fields in the university, there really is a split between kind of the research side of it and the practice side of it. And so we have faculty members that are actively engaged in research and not so much in the practice. And then we also, of course, have faculty that are actively engaged in the practice and not so much in the research. And so it's just interesting that way, but we definitely do have lots of research opportunities for students that are looking for that. Another question I get a lot is, if I'm going to be in honors, can I be a nurse? And the answer is definitely. We partner with the Honors College better and better, I would say. There are challenges around being a college where students go in the last 2 years off to campuses throughout the state. But I think COVID in particular has shown a lot of people across campus that distance delivery methods of instruction are not necessarily inferior. And we're continuing to have conversations with honors about how to better serve our students when they go to Billings and still want to graduate with honors. But we have plenty of nursing students in honors that graduate in honors, and it's a great experience for them. It's good for the Honors College as well to have that diversity with the nurses in there. We partner with ROTC, so Army and Air Force, and obviously the Army and the Air Force need nurses, and we help to make sure they have what they need to serve our forces there. The other opportunity that we have for Native American and Alaskan Native students is the co-op program. We call it the Caring for Our Own program. And that is a program that promotes Native American and Alaskan Native nurses. So we want to get to a point where we have enough Native American and Alaskan Native trained nurses that are willing to go back to their communities to help improve the health outcomes in their communities. And so that's kind of the goal of that program. It's been over 20 years. We've had well over 100 graduates, and it's become kind of a model throughout the country for this type of programming. and we're super proud of it, and it's very successful. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out and ask about more details there, and I can get you in contact with our co-op office. And so that really does basically tie it up. I typically find, and I've seen very briefly, it's kind of up in the corner here, that there are questions coming in, but I know that nursing being unlike many other undergraduate degree programs, there tends to be a lot of questions. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you my contact information for if you want to reach out after this presentation, but I would also be very interested in knowing what immediate questions you guys have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing all of this very valuable information. So we do have quite a few questions in the chat to go through, but really quickly to all of our attendees, first off, thanks for joining us this evening. And I got to give a quick shout out to one of our attendees, Andrew, for bringing it to our attention that unfortunately, if you were sending any questions throughout this presentation to all attendees, we were not able to see those. So we apologize for any confusion on our end. So if you did put any questions throughout, please address them to all panelists. That way that we're able to see them going forward. So thank you, Andrew, for letting us know that. So Paul, one question that we have is regarding a student who knows someone who goes to another university that said nursing is a really hard major that requires you to have, really good math and chemistry skills. It's really intimidating as the student feels that they're not super strong in those subjects. Is that true? Do you believe that student still has a good chance in the nursing program?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, on the one hand, I think it is surprising sometimes to nursing students that to be a good nurse, you do need to have math skills. You do need to know chemistry. You need to know about the human body. You need to know the anatomy and physiology. You need to know the pathophysiology. So that's a lot of information. I mean, you need to know about nutrition and all these different things, and the chemistry behind nutrition and how that works. So in some sense, yes, but at the same time, I think it's very achievable, but we do hold a high bar at the same time. I mean, as we should, nurses make decisions that can result in life and death. One of the biggest causes of mistakes in the medical field is dosage calculation errors, and so that is math. And so the math in nursing is not hard, but it is essential that you get it right. So I mean, for example, the highest level of math we require, well, depending on how you look at it, we do require statistics. We want students to be able to look at medical research and understand what that means. I see that kind of as a different kind of math. It's just intro to statistics. And then college algebra. So we're not doing, anything super complicated. There's not even geometry involved, but you do have to be able to do basic calculations. So, I think it really comes down to how interested you are in, nursing itself. If you're really interested in nursing, I think you'll see that those things that we require as prerequisites are foundational to being a successful nurse. And that's obviously why we have it.
Awesome. Another question is, if you graduate in Montana, does that mean you can only practice in Montana? Say they want to practice in California or something.
That is such a wonderful question. So, and I did not talk about the NCLEX, I realized as I was going through, I just briefed it I briefly mentioned it. But the NCLEX, so when you graduate from the College of Nursing, you are then able to sit for the NCLEX exam, which is the licensure exam to become a registered nurse, an RN. And so that exam is the same no matter where you take it. Now the licensing is a little bit different because every state has their own rules around licensing. Now, Montana is a part of a compact of states where if you license in Montana, I think there's 32 the last time I checked. I could be wrong about that, but it's right around there. Where if you license in Montana, you basically can license in any of those states without any kind of problem. Basically, just go there and tell them, I'm licensed in a compact state, and now I want to practice here. That does not mean you cannot practice in other states. And I'll use California as an example because it's always, unique, let's say. So for example, in California, they have certain requirements around those sciences that I was talking about, those 5 sciences. They have kind of those same things. State Board of Nursing says you have to do those, but also each one has to have had a lab. And so you need to provide a transcript that shows that you took those courses and they had a lab. Now, we do that, okay? And so you are able to license in California if you graduate from here. It's just a kind of another hoop to jump through. It's not just like Montana, you graduated from an accredited bachelor's science of nursing program. You took the NCLEX, you passed in Montana, okay, you're good to go. So some states have other hoops, but we basically, you should be able to license in any one that we know of, that our students have experienced. We haven't heard that you can't.
Fantastic. There's another question asking whether or not we accept weighted or unweighted GPAs. I can answer that really quickly. When applying to Montana State University, we accept both weighted and unweighted. And so Paul kind of explained how that works, where you'll come in as a pre-nursing student, and then when you're applying to like get into your clinical courses and so forth, that'll be based off of your GPA here at Montana State University. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul.
Oh, that's right. And so the only reason your GPA prior to getting to MSU would make a difference is if you had taken dual enroll credits where you're getting college credits as a high school student. And then the grade that shows up on your college transcript for like chemistry, for example, we would use.
Awesome. Okay, well, another question. A student is considering medical school. Does the nursing curriculum include the prereqs necessary to apply for med school?
That is a great question. So the pre-med option, if you will, at MSU and the pre-nursing curriculum in nursing oddly do not overlap that well. There is a little bit, but not that much. So that's a great question. And it is one of those things where it seems like they should a little bit better than they do, but they don't. So for example, our requirements for chemistry are lower than the requirements of chemistry for someone going into pre-med. And so while we do kind of this like semester-long intro to general chemistry, for the pre-med option, you need to do 2 semesters, general chemistry 1, general chemistry 2. So that's just one little example of the difference, but there's things like that kind of throughout. So they don't really overlap that well, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And if you are interested in medical school, we do have a pre-med intake program. It's not a major, rather it's a separate advising track. So really you have the opportunity to pursue an undergraduate degree that you're passionate about. And then the pre-med advisors make sure that you're taking those sort of prerequisite courses necessary to actually apply to medical school going forward. Another question that we have is, at what point do you need to decide if you want to study abroad? Do you know where the studies may take place next fall or spring? For the last part of that question, when it comes to, are we going to be traveling? At this moment, no, but it's still undetermined, like going further on. But I'll let you take the other part.
Yeah, so study abroad is a really interesting thing. So most study abroad now, when you look at it at the university and across the nation, is done during breaks. It's not as common anymore to do full semesters or full years of study abroad. Now, you can do any of that. You can do it during the break. You can do it for a semester. You can do it for a year. The only thing is you would probably be delaying your time to graduation if you did it simply for a semester or for a year, simply because it would be hard to find courses that were exactly the prerequisites you needed to stay on track. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That's a choice that you would have to make. Now, when I talked about when you get into nursing, you could not take advantage of those semester or year-long ones. Our curriculum, once you get in, you go through. But the summer, fall, and spring opportunities that I discussed are ones that are specifically for our nursing students. And so you could take advantage of those. They're shorter though. They're not a full semester or a year.
Fantastic. And then another question in the chat is, what college courses would possibly be valuable to get done in high school before coming to Montana State University and joining the nursing program, if you were to take any?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of them, there's very few that would not be useful. So even if it's not maybe one of the prerequisites that I listed, it's quite possible or very likely that any course you would be taking would come in as core. And so you also need these core classes to graduate and some elective credits as well. So I would really say take something that's interesting to you. It will probably help you. If you wanted to take one of the prerequisite courses, the only caveat I would say is that the grade that you get in that will matter. for when you apply. So sometimes I've seen high school students maybe are just not ready for it. They don't do as well, and then they set themselves up poorly for when they get into college and are more mature and ready to go. So if you want to do it, I'm not saying you shouldn't. It can be great, but just be careful. Know that if you're taking one of those prerequisite courses, we're going to count that grade. We don't care that you were in high school. It's a college credit. So.
Yeah, that's great advice. And then this one is a great question too. What kind of job placement have we seen in our nursing graduates from that program in recent years?
Yeah, it's 100% basically at the bachelor's level. 100% are either employed as nurses or getting a higher degree, which is essentially how you measure that sort of thing. There's a massive nursing shortage. So I can't imagine. I mean, if you weren't employed, it would mostly be because you didn't want to be employed.
Great. And then a student is asking about any rural or cross-cultural opportunities within the College of Nursing. Are those available? And if so, what is available?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a little complicated to go into for a forum like this, but if you're interested in rural opportunities, we have what's called the Rural Primary Care Track. It's an option that students can just go into, and it adds an additional 80 hours of, it's not necessarily clinical experience, but different things that can kind of meet that. That kind of teach you about what it means to practice medicine in a rural setting. And you also get placed for some of your clinicals in a rural facility. And so it's great. I mean, every student that I know that I've talked to about it has thought it was extremely valuable. And rural healthcare really is a lot different than, practicing at a hospital, for example. So if you're interested in that, I would highly recommend it.
Absolutely. And then one other question is, how many total applicants on average do you have apply to, these upper division clinical courses, being that aren't able to accept, you're only able to accept a minimum amount. What does that kind of look like numbers wise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I typically think of it as acceptance rates, if that makes sense. So we accept 112, and I'm just going off of recent data. All these things could always change. A lot of this is outside our control. But in the last 3 years, a competitive application cycle, we've accepted only 60% of the applicants. So you could do the math to figure out. I mean, maybe it's whatever, 180 to 200, somewhere in there. I don't know. And then for a less competitive application cycle, we've accepted almost 90% of the applicants. Not quite, but up there. So again, I mean, and so then you're looking at maybe like 100, I don't know, 30, 40, something like that. Again, you can do the math. The numbers are a little confusing to me simply because we have our initial application. This is more than you need to know, but the initial application number, and then a lot of those applicants aren't qualified, so we kind of shuffle those out. We don't really consider those in our acceptance rate because they were someone that didn't really look at what they needed to do. So anyway, so I can't remember. I typically look at the big number, and then I kind of forget what it gets to as it whittles down. But we do track the percentages, so that's pretty accurate.
Great. Well, it looks like we just had another one come in. Is the acceptance rate for statewide enrollment? So I want to assume, like through all the hospitals and stuff.
Yeah, so it's through those 5 campuses and the 112. Yeah, so we separate acceptance from placement when we're talking about this. So our acceptance rate, is what I'm talking about. And then you get placed. Okay, and students can choose to accept or decline their placement. They don't. We do occasionally have students who really can't move for whatever reason, and they didn't get that placement. And so you can decline, you can get put on the wait list. We actively work through that and try to get students into, the place that they want to be. But, there's no guarantees with that, of course.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it looks like that is all the questions that we have for tonight. Paul, thank you so much again for taking the time to share more information on the College of Nursing and answering all these questions this evening. And then for our attendees, thank you all for tuning in tonight, no matter where you may be tuning in from. We really appreciate it. So once again, this will be available a little later on this week through our YouTube channel and online at our Meet Your Major website. But other than that, have a great rest of your night, everyone. And as always, go Cats.
All right. Thank you, guys.